Hey, if you're new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and honestly, it'd make my day. If you already did, thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, if you like listening to fan fiction, check out my other channel. The link's in the description.
Queen of the Pirates by Mustar0013. What would happen if Luffy was a girl? Good thing, a queen of the pirates. The problem, very awkward situations between her and a certain swordsman as they and their friends travel to the Grand Line for One Piece adios.
A few rays of light tickled at Lucy's closed eyes as morning peeked into the room she was in. Said pirate's eyes fluttered open and she winced at the light that invaded her eyes. Her stomach was doing somersaults with a pain following after it and her muscles felt stiff to the bone. She coughed weakly when she felt that her throat was dry. It was like she swallowed cotton. She heard running footsteps and she could make out a person with her blurred vision. The person lifted her head with one hand and held something to her lips. "Here, drink this. It will help you feel a lot better," said the voice of the person. Lucy blinked tiredly before allowing the drink past her lips. She enjoyed the cold feeling of the liquid going down her dry throat. When she finished it, her vision came clear and she looked at the face of the person who saved her. It was the man she had met after she had met Ms. All Sunday. "Are you okay? Do you need any more?" asked the man, holding the cup he had in his hand. Lucy shook her head and her eyes took a quick scan of the room. It was actually a tent with a few medical items, a chest, and a few books. She also realized she was lying in a cot. Where am I? What happened? And, who are you?" she asked, her voice slightly hoarse. The man slowly paced her head back on the cot and he walked over to table, mixing a liquid with a type of paste. "My name is Pell. I am the second commander of the Alabasta Guards. We are in a tent base that I've made that is in the Grand Dunes. I found you wounded and dehydrated. You were practically at death's door," said Pell as he finished mixing the two ingredients and walked over to Lucy again. "Open the last 3 buttons of your vest, please," he said. Lucy did as she was told and her eyes widened at all the bandages that was wrapped around her lower abdomen. Pell undid the bandages and Lucy hissed when Pell smeared the mixture he made onto her blackening wound. "This paste should draw out any sand that has gotten in your injury. It will also cease the infection that has come over it," explained Pell as he wrapped a fresh roll of bandages, tying up the wound. "Can you tell me what happened? Who attacked you?" he asked. Lucy scratched the back of her head and she panicked slightly when she felt that her straw hat wasn't there. She then remembered. She hand left it was Zoro, it was all right. The captain looked at Pell. "You said you were second commander of the Alabasta Guards, right?" she asked. Pell nodded. Lucy took a breath before nodding to herself. "Okay. I tell you," she said. She explained everything that had happened ever since she had met Vivi. She told him what adventures they had and all that they had been through. She had told him what she knew of Crocodile and Baroque works. She told him about her fight with Crocodile in the Grand Dunes and she had told him his plot. When she finished, Pell looked like he understood it all. "So that's it. I always knew that man was a false hero," said the pale man. Lucy nodded and she then remembered something else. "How long have I been knocked out?" she asked. "About 3 days. You looked like you were in so much pain," said Pell. Lucy's eyes widened and she jumped out of bed, yelping as pain shot to her wound. Pell caught her before she could fall. "What are you doing? You'll just reopen your wound," exclaimed Pell. Lucy grinded her teeth and glared at Pell. "I don't care. Everyone in Alubarna will die if the rebel army and the royal guards fight. No one will survive. Millions of innocent lives will be killed all because of Crocodile. I just have to get there right now. They need me," she yelled. Pell held her back. "You're crazy if you think you can fight in this condition, child," yelled Pell. "I don't want to fight. I want to protect," yelled Lucy. Pell froze when he heard the girl say that. He remembered the days when he would watch over Vivi and when she asked him why he trained. He told her he did it for the kingdom. That fighting and protecting were 2 different things. Lucy looked at Pell with seriousness swirling in her black eyes. "Please, I just have to get to Alubarna real fast. My friends are waiting for me and they need me," she said. Pell looked back at the girl's eyes before nodding. "Very well. I shall take you there. Wait for me outside," he said. Lucy nodded and she walked outside. A few winds were blowing tumbleweeds here to there and the sun was at its usual heat. Lucy shaded her eyes with her hand and she looked at the cloudless sky. "It'll rain, Vivi. I promise," she thought. Pell walked out, all set and ready to go. He handed Lucy the little barrel that had fallen off her neck and Lucy looked around for the thing they were going to ride in. "So, how are we supposed to get to Alubarna?" she asked. Pell gave a knowing smile. "I can take us there. I have eaten the bird fruit. The flaken model," he said as his appearance changed into a giant falcon with brown feathers. "Wow, cool," exclaimed Lucy. Pell allowed the pirate on his back and he took off into the sky. "I just have this to ask. What do you plan to do in order to beat Crocodile? Didn't he leave you for dead when you two fought?" asked Pell as he flew through the sky. "He did. But I guess I just have to think of a new move in order to beat him," she said. Pell said nothing as continued to soar over the sandy landscape. Lucy looked at her bandage-wrapped wrist. The very one that had the X that she and the others had drawn on their arms. She placed her hand on her wrist and she looked ahead, a determined glint in her eyes. "Defeat the rebels. Get past the guards." Commands and yells rang through the city of Alubarna as gun smoke and the clashes of metal went across the city. People were scrambling all over the place, trying their best to escape the war that was going on in the capital. The war had started a few hours ago and things were not looking good at all. Buildings were destroyed by bombs and a few bodies laid on the floor. A little boy with a baby in his arms ran through one part and he was unfortunate to get caught through a sword fight. Before he and the infant were scratched, he was protected by a man wielding 3 swords. "You alright, kid?" asked Zoro to the child. The boy gulped and nodded, fright showing in his eyes. A few gunshots ran through the air and the boy huddled to Zoro's feet. The swordsman quickly picked up the kid and he ran past the several men that were fighting. "Over here. Bring them over here." Zoro looked to see a couple of Marines calling him. They looked like they were escorting some people out of the capital. He hesitated before running over to the men and handing the small boy to the man. "Hey, I need to get to Clock Tower. Do you know where that is?" asked the swordsman. He knew that asking for directions from a Marine was pathetic, but he really needed them. "Just head north. You'll get to the top of it if you do," said the man. Zoro nodded and he turned to leave when he heard the little boy call out something. "Thanks, mister. You're really cool," he called. Zoro kept on running, but only with a knowing smile on his face. He then felt something in one of his hands and he looked at it. His fingers curled tightly around the brim of Luce's hat and he ran in the direction he was told to go in. "Hey guys! How did you get down there?" yelled Sanji from high above. Nami, Vivi, Usopp, and Chopper looked up to see their blonde friend on the second floor of the clock tower. Each one of them were covered in scratches, due to the fact that they had all fought the members of Baroque Works. "Sanji, what are you doing up there?" exclaimed Usopp. "You guys looking for the bomb too, right? I found out that it's around here," yelled Sanji back. What he said was true. Crocodile had planted a bomb somewhere in the city and the Straw Hat Gang had found out that it was close to the clock tower. "That's great. Just head to the top. It should be up there," yelled Usopp back. "Sanji. Guys, what are you doing there?" This time, everyone looked up to see Zoro of the clock tower. Sanji was the first to yell. "Zoro, what the hell are you doing there? It was the Marines. They kept saying go north, so I just went up." North and up are not the same thing, stupid. While those two were having their little fight, the team on the ground soon heard the thundering of footsteps. They turned to see 2 groups of rebels and guards running toward each other. Both were intent on killing. "They're gonna ram us," yelled Chopper as the 2 groups closed in on them. Fire gun. White blow. A spiral of fire and smoke met as the 2 attacks separated the 2 groups from the 4 pirates. Said people looked to see Ann and Smoker stand in front of them, flames and smoke whipping out of their bodies. "You guys alright?" asked Ann when the fire and smoke died down. "We're fine. Has Lucy come back yet?" asked Vivi. Ann shook her head with a worried look in her eyes. "No, and I'm getting really worried because Draco came here by himself this morning without her. I think something might have happened," said the flame girl as a frown that matched her eyes came onto her lips. A gloved hand came to her shoulder and Ann looked up to see calm gray eyes. "There's nothing to worry about, Portgas. That sister of yours is stronger than she looks," said Smoker. Anne looked at Smoker's hand before smiling at Smoker with a nod. She then turned back to the others. So you guys were yelling something about a bomb, right? She asked. Yeah. Crocodile planted it somewhere around the clock tower and we're trying to find it, said Nami. Anne placed her finger on her chin and she looked toward Smoker. What do you think we should do, Smoker? She asked. The gray white-haired man ran fingers through his hair and he bit at the 2 cigars in his mouth. This kind of business was seriously nerve-wracking. Captain Smoker. There are more rebels and soldiers heading this way, called Tashigi as she ran over. Zoro was glad as heck that he was on the 5th floor. Smoker looked at his protege and he then thought of something. Tashigi, Portgas, you two follow me. We have to buy these pirates some time in order to stop the bomb. Understand? Asked the Marine. Everyone nodded and Anne and Tashigi followed Smoker. As the trio ran, the 3 of them attacked at the soldiers that tried to stop them. Anne gave impressive fire attacks while Smoker threw his smoke abilities and Tashigi used her sword skills. They made it to an area that was surrounded with smoke. I'll take this way, you two stick together, yelled Smoker as he ducked into the smoke. Anne and Tashigi ran into the other direction just as a few rebel soldiers and guards came by. As they fought with them, Anne spotted one of the soldiers that was coming behind Tashigi. Look out! Yelled the pyro girl as she ran and knocked the swordswoman out of the fire range. A gunshot went through the air and Anne clenched her teeth as a bullet grazed her arm. Portgas, are you alright? Asked Tashigi as she ran over to the fallen 20-year-old. Anne pressed her hand to her wound and she gave a hiss. I'm fine. It's just a scratch. Are you okay, Tashigi? Asked the devil fruit girl to the Marine. It's not my well-being you should be concerned about, said Tashigi as she looked at Anne's bleeding arm. Anne shook her head and she bared her teeth slightly at Tashigi. Nah, it's fine because it's me. If it were you, Smoker would never forgive me. Muttered Anne as small sparks of fire came around her wound, sealing the injury with the heat. Tashigi gave a confused look, not understanding what the pirate was saying. Anne noticed the confusion and she continued, "You're Smoker's protege. You mean a lot to him and he told us to stick together. That means we have to watch each other's back. Smoker would hate me if I let something bad happen to you." And Anne gave a wince as her fire got a bit big and she died it down a bit before continuing. "And I couldn't live with myself if Smokey hated me," she mumbled. Tashigi felt her heart tug when she saw Anne's look of honesty. It looked like the fire power girl really cared about Smoker a lot. "Hey, the Marine's right, girl. It's both your lives you should be worried about." The two turned to see a rebel soldier point a rifle at them. They spot the Baroque works mark on his arm and before they could move, his and several others' rifles shot at them. The 2 women gasped and closed their eyes. They heard the sounds of punctured flesh and Tashigi was the first to open her eyes with a loud shriek. "Captain Smoker! No!" she screamed. Anne opened her eyes too and she gasped at the sight. Several blood holes were through Smoker's pale chest and they were all bleeding rapidly. Smoker laid sprawled on the floor, his body twitching, his breathing heavy, and his clothes soaked in his own pool of blood. Anne's eyes widened and she bolted toward the wounded Marine. "Smokey! Smoker! What did you just do?" yelled Anne as she shook the man's body when she reached him. Smoker turned to his back and he spotted something he never thought. Tears were moistening in the pyromaniac's brown eyes and her face showed concern and worry. Whatever pain Smoker felt on his chest wasn't compared to the pain he was seeing on Anne's face. He swallowed the blood that tried to pass his throat and his hand pressed to Anne's cheek, his thumb swiping under Anne's eye. "You're crying, Portgas," he muttered, his pale thumb catching the tear that was about to fall. Anne blinked. She couldn't believe that the Marine's voice could go this soft. A warm tear escaped her eye and dropped to the ground. "So what about you? Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice wavering with worry. Smoker coughed as his throat caught a bit of blood. He could feel his entire world go black as the pain took over his mind. My body just did what my mind told it. I guess you could say, I'm paying back a life," chalked Smoker as his eyes looked deeply into Anne's before they fell shut, his hand falling to his side. Anne's head hung low and she said nothing. "Portgas?" asked Tashigi, a little nervous of Anne's silence. The fire girl slowly turned to the female Marine, tears running out of her eyes and staining her freckled cheeks. Toshigi had never seen a pirate look so broken and lost. Why? They shouldn't be fighting. This all just a misunderstanding. People are getting hurt because of this. It's not fair. It's just not fair, whispered Anne as her tears continued to fall. Toshigi took a gulp before she walked over to Anne and helped her to her feet. I know it's not fair, but people don't know that yet. We and a lot of people are trying to show that, and Captain Smoker just showed something like that. He showed that even though his whole life, he hated pirates for everything they were, he risked his life for one. Because he knew that both are not different. No matter what mark they bear and what place they work for, said Toshigi. Anne blinked out a few tears and she looked at Smoker. Her heart filled with grief because of his action, but she knew that Toshigi was right. Smoker had risked his life for her to prove this whole mishap was wrong. And right now, Anne had to return the favor. The back-haired girl turned back to Toshigi with a firm nod. Okay. I'll go see if the guys need some help. Take care of Smoker, alright? She asked. Toshigi nodded, and with that, Anne turned into a ball of fire and flew out of the area. Mr. Pell, are we there yet? Asked Lucy as Pell soared in the air. The two had been flying for an hour now and Lucy could already see gun smoke come from a giant city. Pell nodded in his falcon form. Yes. Hold on, yelled the Birdman as he flew closer to the city and flew around. Lucy frowned sadly as she spotted all the fighting that was going on. She remembered that Vivi had wanted nothing like this to happen, and now this was happening. It was not right. Her eyes swiped over the area and they widened when she spotted the clock tower opening and a giant bomb behind it. Bomb that looks like it's going to blow. What do we do? Asked Lucy. Pell spotted the bomb as well and he frowned at it. He knew what he had to do. It would cost him his life, but it was worth it. To protect the city was his duty. Ms. Lucy, I believe it is time we part our ways. Take care of Princess Vivi for me, said the Flacken man as he swooped his body, make Lucy fall off him. Lucy's eyes shot wide when she saw the Birdman take the bomb and fly high into the sky. Mr. Pell, no, she cried as she fell to the earth. But Pell could not hear her. As he soared high into the sky with the bomb giving its last ticks, he smiled softly. Farewell, my princess. Then, the bomb burst into the air. Everyone head whipped in the direction of the explosion. Vivi could spot the brown feathers that came from the might winds of fire and shelling, and her eyes widened. She choked on her breath and tears went into her eyes. Pell, no, she cried as she broke down to the floor, her tears bursting from her cheeks. Lucy heard Vivi's yell as she fell and her own tears blurred her vision. She could tell that Vivi was really hurt inside and she blamed herself for the whole event. As she soon reached the earth, she felt fingers catch her arms and legs and lower her to the ground. Lucy stared up wide-eyed at her savior. Ms. All Sunday. You saved me again, she exclaimed, not believing that the woman of Baroque works had saved her life again. The mysterious woman looked at the girl with a cool aura. Indeed. You're quite observant, Ms. Monkey D. Lucy, she said. Lucy stood up and she held her fist in a fighting position. I have to know, why did you save me this time? I could landed on a building or something, she said. True, but I can see that you are in a need of help, correct? Asked Ms. All Sunday. Lucy slowly nodded. Then I can give you some. I can tell you where Crocodile is, said the older woman. Lucy raised an eyebrow skeptically. How do I know you're not tricking me? What if you're setting me up? Asked the raven-haired girl warily. Ms. All Sunday placed her hands on her pockets and she turned. I never said I was under Crocodile's hand. I simply need him, she said. Need him? Asked Lucy with curiosity. Ms. All Sunday began to walk away and Lucy raised her hand. Oi, wait. Crocodile is in an underground room that is right below us. If you use those rubber abilities of yours, you just might get to him in time. Until we meet again, Ms. Monkey D. Lucy, said the ebony-haired woman as she walked away into the gun smoke. Lucy blinked before she jumped to the air and gave a kick to the ground. It gave a crackling sound and it suddenly fell through. Lucy gave a determined smile as she fell through the ground. You think you can defeat me, girl? You're dreaming. Lucy breathed heavily as she glared at Crocodile. True to the Baroque works female's word, Crocodile was in an underground room. He had also captured King Cobra and the so-called hero, and Lucy had gotten in an all-out battle and the two were close to exhaustion. Both of them had severe wounds and the room around them was about to fall soon. Lucy wiped her bloody lip. "And that's what I'm trying to make a reality. A dream," yelled Lucy as her body blew in with air like a balloon. She then threw back her fist and Crocodile's eyes widened. "This is for Vivi, Gum Gum Storm," yelled the Gum Gum girl as her fist shot out toward the false hero with more power and quicker speed than her Gum Gum Gatling. Crocodile yelled as he crashed toward the wall by the mighty attack and he slid to the ground to a knocked-out heap. Sand whipped out of his body and flew to the cracks above. Lucy breathing went labored as she fell back to the floor. As her eyes closed tiredly, one thought went through her mind. "Please, let it rain," and suddenly, her plea came true. "Tell me, babe, how many do I shed my tears? Every heart is not a gentle yet. Shall I do? I can never say my loneliness every heart, doesn't know so what to say oh what to do." As the sands whipped through the cracks and into the sky, there was a little rumble. That rumble soon turned into a roar of thunder and the sky grew thick with clouds. Something fell from the heavy clouds and pelted the ground with light lumps. Everyone heard the thumps and they looked up, not at all believing what was coming before their eyes. "Was afraid of darkness 'cause I felt that I was left alone. So I prayed for help to distant million stars." Water droplets fell from the desert sky and everyone looked in shock. The Straw Hat crew, counting Anne who had recently found them, all looked at each other before cheering and jumping into the air. Lucy beat Crocodile. Round and round, the planets revolve round the sun. And we always seek after love and peace, forevermore. Growing, whoa, baby, we can work it out. Look up at the sky, every heart is shining all today. Tashigi and several other Marines looked up at the raining sky as the water splashed on their faces. Tashigi looked down to see Smoker waking up. A thick gauze was wrapped around his wounds and he barely survived his wounds. The gray-haired Marine reached his hands slowly up and rain pelted his gloved hand. "Captain Smoker, it's raining. Can you believe it?" asked Tashigi in awe. Smoker blinked and he closed his eyes. "Right now, anything is bound to happen. Show me now, what kind of smile do I come across? Every heart can take a step towards the dreams. All of us, what to take a lasting happiness whenever you feel sad. I want to hold you and give you a sound sleep." King Cobra walked over to Lucy and he smiled at her gratefully. "Thank you, for all you have done," he said. Lucy's eyes opened and she gave her signature grin of D. The king picked her up piggyback style and he helped her out of the underground room. As soon as they got out, the king allowed the cold rain to freshen his drying, tanned skin. Lucy, thank God you're okay." The king turned to see the Straw Hat group running over to them. He could recognize Vivi among them. Vivi saw him as well. "Daddy, you're okay, too," she cried as she ran faster to her father. The man placed Lucy down and he hugged his daughter, happy to see she was all right. Anne ran over to her little sister and she checked her. "The kid's roughed up a bit but she fine. Thank God," said the girl to herself. She brushed a few hairs from her sister's forehead and gave a light smile. She picked up Lucy bridal style and she placed her on Draco's back and turned to the others with her smile still on. "Thank you, all of you. You must have helped as well," said King Cobra. Every just gave returning grins and smiles. The king had his arm around his daughter's waist and he waved his hand. "Please come with me. You all need your rest," he said. Everyone nodded and Anne turned to Zoro. "I need to go somewhere. I'll meet you guys sometime later," she said. Zoro looked at Lucy before he nodded. Anne smiled and she soon dashed off. The green-haired man looked at his captain before giving a rare smile and placing the teen's straw hat on her head. The sleeping girl snuggled to Draco's red mane as the lizard and man followed the others. "Someday every heart's gonna free and easy we have peace of mind. Someday all the people find the way to love him." Hina hasn't seen Smoker this banged up since training days. "How is Smoker?" Smoker looked over his shoulder to see an old friend of his. It was a female Marine with long, wavy pink hair and ruby red lips. She looked very disappointed. And Smoker wishes Hina would stop talking in third person because Smoker finds it annoying. Mocked Smoker as he breathed in cigars and stood up from the ground. He and a few other Marines were just taking a quick look of the ruins of the city when Hina came. Hina finds that rude. And just when Hina wanted to see her old friend, scolded Hina. Smoker rolled his eyes and he made sure the gauze tied around his chest was well and tight. What happened to Smoker? How did he get hurt? Asked Hina, logically. Smoker, for one of the rarest moments of his life, zipped up his jacket. Just a small injury. Nothing of your concern, he said. If he played it cool enough, maybe his old friend wouldn't bring up the subject again. Smokey, you're okay. Smoker nearly lost all the air in his lungs as arms wrapped around his neck and legs wrapped around his waist from behind. Anne nuzzled her head to the Marine's neck with a happy smile on her face. Her heart was bursting with sheer joy. Smoker, however, was annoyed beyond hell. Get the hell off me, Portgas, yelled the smoke power man as he tried to break out of the girl's vice grip with no avail. Who is this, Smoker? Hina is curious, said Hina with a raise of her eyebrow. Anne looked at the woman and she glared at her slightly with a hint of jealousy in her eyes. Who is she? And how did she know Smoker? Said Marine got the pyro girl off him and he cleared his throat. Just a complete nuisance, he muttered. Anne looked at Smoker and she gave a Lucy-like pout. Nuisance? Smokey's mean. I just wanted to see if you were okay after all those bullets, said the girl as she crossed her arms childishly. Bullets? Asked Hina with a arched brow. It's nothing, forget it, yelled Smoker, growing annoyed. He then turned to Anne. See, I'm alright. Now do me a favor and leave before I make you, yelled the man. Anne blinked before giving a smirk. Okay. I'm just glad to see that you're back to your regular self. Alright. I'll leave. Bye, Smokey, I'll miss you, cooed Anne as she gave the Marine a quick peck on the cheek before sprinting away. Smoker's face flared up and he noticed that Anne had dropped a slip of paper on the floor. Oi, Portgas, you dropped this, yelled Smoker, picking up the slip and waving it in the air. Anne looked back and her grin flattened slightly before it came back. Keep it for me, will ya? She called as she ran away and disappeared. Smoker blinked before looking at the slip. It was a picture of Anne and she was giving a cute grin. Next to her was someone else. It was a man with reddish-brownish hair and a black goatee. His eyes were dark brown and he wore a light blue suit with a yellow kerchief. What surprised Smoker was that the man had one of his arms wrapped around Anne's waist and they both looked happy. Smoker turned the picture over and he spotted some words. Anne and Thatch, two souls that were meant to meet, but not meant to last. Who is this Thatch? Thought the cigar man with curiosity. He was dragged out of his thoughts when someone was patting his back really hard. Hina's proud of Smoker. He's final gotten a good lady, praised Hina. Several veins popped on Smoker's face as said face turned crimson. And Smoker wants Hina to shut the hell up before Smoker get too pissed off. Goes and goes, the time goes on, we are not alone, we live on together and we will find some precious things. Sometime we will smile, sometime we will cry somehow. Don't forget believing yourself, tomorrows never die. Lucy gave a yawn as she woke up on a nice and comfy bed. She sat up and looked around, seeing she was in a big room that looked simple yet very nice and seeing that she was in light blue pajamas. She looked to her side and she spotted a huge plate of fruit laid out for her. A small sign on it simply read, "Eat up." Wasting no time. The girl gobbled up all the food in a mere 5 seconds. Still feeling that her stomach was empty, the girl got off from the comfy bed and she walked out of the room. She walked her way into a large hallway and she looked around. How did I get here? She whispered to herself. Another door soon opened and Zoro walked out of it. He wore a black silk robe with his haramaki tied around his waist. The swordsman spotted his captain. Hey, so you're finally awake? He asked as he walked over to Lucy. Said girl cocked her head in confusion. Finally, how long have I been knocked out? Asked Lucy as she and her first mate walked down a staircase. About 3 days now. The king told us that you got in a pretty rough fight with Crocodile, said Zoro when the two made it down the stairs. Lucy's eyes widened to dinner plates. 3 days, man, I missed about 15 meals already, yelled the captain while Zoro's sweat dropped. Calm down, Captain, it's lunchtime now and everyone must be in the dining room right now. Come on, said Zoro as he led the panicking girl over to the giant dining room. True to his word, everyone was eating glorious amounts of food. They all looked over as the two sat down by the table. Hi ya, baby sis. Glad to see you're awake, said Anne as she patted Lucy's back. Lucy smiled as she piled food onto her plate and she blinked at the two people sitting next to her sister. "Smokey, Ms. All Sunday. What are you doing here?" asked Lucy in astonishment. A Marine and a member of Baroque Works were sitting right with her crew. What in the name of fudge was going on? "Relax, Lucy. They won't hurt us," said Vivi calmly. "Yes. Captain Smoker has agreed not to capture you, your sister, or your crew today. I've invited them here after the valiant work they have done during the war. And Ms. All Sunday was a great help near the end of the battle as well when she told us all the information she had gathered from Crocodile. It turns out she was on our side this whole time," said King Cobra. Lucy looked skeptically at the two mentioned person before shrugging and eating up the food she had on her plate. "Alright. I'm okay with Smokey, but I'm gonna be a little cautious around you, Ms. All Sunday." Lucy's crew was thinking that Lucy was acting a bit rude, but Ms. All Sunday waved her hand. "I understand. Personally, I don't blame you for being cautious. Why don't we get to know each other slowly? I have already heard of all your names, but I have yet to tell mine. I am Robin." "Nico Robin," said Robin, giving a light smile. Everyone nodded in acknowledgement and they continued to have the breakfast they had. A few conversations went here and there. King Cobra explained that his kingdom would go to be a new soon enough. Anne had said that she had Draco placed in the Alabasta animal guards to protect the kingdom, and Vivi began an important one. "So, what will you all be planning to do after you leave Alabasta?" she asked. Nami wiped her lips with a napkin. "We don't know exactly. But we have plenty time to think about that. Is okay if we relax around here for a while?" asked the redhead. The king smiled and nodded. "Of course it's all right. You've all worked so well. Why don't you go and take a dip in the royal baths? We usually open them around the rain seasons, but I can make an exception," he said. A few people, mostly the men, declined, but the king would have none of it. It was bath time. "Wah, this feels nice," mused Lucy. Anne giggled as she ran shampoo through her sister's short hair. The D sisters, Nami, Vivi, and Robin were sitting in the women's royal baths and they were all relaxing with their own affairs. Nami, Vivi, and Robin were having a light conversation and the D sisters were giving each other a good bath. "Hey, Anne. What are you gonna do when you have to leave?" asked Lucy curiously. Anne rubbed her sister's face with a wet cloth and she thought for a while. "I guess I can go check out for Blackbeard. Now that the king gave me enough rain powder to last me a whole year, I can leave soon," said the freckled face girl. Lucy laid back slightly and she looked over her shoulder to her sister. "I'll miss you. A lot," she said with a little sadness in her voice. Anne gave a smile and she smoothed the younger girl's wet hair. "I know, and I'll miss you a lot, too," she said. Lucy smiled back. She really would miss Anne. It had been 3 years since they had last seen each other and now they were going to leave each other again. She sure hoped that the two of them would meet again soon. A small sad pang hit Lucy's stomach when she remembered that she would have to leave Vivi. She knew that the princess had to look over her country from now on. "Just peep on us." Lucy broke out of her thoughts when she saw that Sanji, Usopp, Chopper, and the king peeking at them from over the wall. Nami gave them a little of her happiness punch, and the men were knocked out with major nosebleeds. "Oi, what's going on?" we heard a scream, called Zoro as he opened the door to the bathhouse with Smoker behind him. Both men's faces turned scarlet when they spotted the D sisters only clothed in towels wrapped around their bodies. Both men walked out of the room quickly as their noses began to bleed. Lucy blinked in confusion while Anne nearly laughed her ass off. "I can't believe we're saying goodbye already. Take good care, Lucy," said Anne as she gave her sister a bear hug. It was already an hour after the bath incident and the Fire Fist and the Straw Hat crew were by the Going Merry to say goodbye. The group had left the palace in the cover of night and they were about to leave at dawn. Lucy hugged back and the two sisters let go. Anne hopped on her schooner and she waved to her sister. Everyone else joined in at the waving. "Bye, I'll miss you," Anne called Lucy as her sister sailed away. "I'll miss you, too, all of you. Take care of my sis for me." "Goodbye," yelled the Pyro Girl as her boat sailed away into the sea. The Straw Hat Gang gave their last waves before they got on their ship and they soon stared to sail away. Just as they were about to leave, they could hear Vivi call them. Lucy wanted to call back and say goodbye, but Nami wouldn't let her. She aimed that marine boats would spot and catch them doing a noble thing. Lucy pulled off the bandages that were around her wrist and she held it up, showing her X mark. Everyone got her point and they followed as well. Vivi spotted the marks and tears came to her eyes. She undid her own bandages and she held her arm to the air. Koza, a friend of Vivi and the leader of the rebel army, stood next to her and he didn't get it. "Do those marks mean something?" he asked. Vivi looked at him and smiled softly. "Yes. They mean everything." Zoro's eye twitched in annoyance at the scene before him. He had seen a lot of strange things in his life. Whales the size of a mountain. A crew of swashbuckling clowns with a captain to match. He even saw Lucy in a maid's outfit. But his down in the dumps lying on their backs and moaning in sadness had beaten all of them. He didn't get it. What was there to be sad about? They saved Alabasta, they managed to escape the Marines, and they were traveling on safe waters. Why the hell were they all sad in the face? "Hey, what's with all the faces?" he asked, tilting his head with a raised brow. Together, the rest of the crew chorused, "We miss her." Zoro felt the muscle above his eye twitch. So that was the reason. How pathetic. "Quit your whining. If you wanted Vivi to come with us, then you shouldn't have let her stay," he said in an annoyed tone. The remaining Straw Hats sat up and glared at the swordsman. All of them wanted to give him a piece of their mind. "You tyrant, blockhead, shitty swordsman. Three sword style is not an insult, Lucy. Four sword style then." Everyone faced palmed at their captain's change of words. Just then, the door to the lower deck had opened. An all too familiar person stepped onto the deck with a change of clothes and without a cowboy hat. Well, they seem to be back to their spirits, Yeah, they're really. Wait a minute. What the hell are you doing here? Yelled Zoro as he pulled out two of his swords. Everyone else jumped to their feet as they soon saw that the person was Nico Robin. The blue-eyed woman held her hands up with a calm smile. "Easy there. You don't want to get into a fight you know you can't win," she said in her deep and soothing voice. Everyone still held stance poses and they were shocked beyond their minds. Just how the heck did she get on the boat? The strange woman turned her eyes to Lucy. "Well, Monkey D. Lucy. It's certainly a pleasure seeing you again," she said. Lucy eased her stance and she took a step to the mysterious person. "What are you doing here? Why did you follow us?" she asked. Robin reached into her pocket and she pulled out a letter. "Princess Vivi had told me to get you this letter. She said it was important that you read it," she said as she walked over to Lucy and held out the envelope. Lucy looked at the letter, then at Robin's trance-like blue eyes. She could see the honesty in them and she took the letter from the woman, opening the envelope and pulling out the letter of cursive. She scrunched her eyes at the words before she waved the paper in the air. "Wah! This is too hard to read, Nami. You read it," complained the captain. With an irritable sigh, the redhead plucked the letter from the girl's hand and she read it aloud. "Dear Lucy and Straw Hat Crew, I hope you have received this letter as soon as you could. I have so much to tell you that my hand is simply trembling with excitement as I write you this letter. What I first like to tell you is that everything in Alabasta is going fantastic. Water has been coming back and peace between the formal rebels and citizens has been restored. My father and everyone else is pleased. We can't thank you enough." Everyone gave a light smile and Nami continued. "I also have some more good news to say. This first piece should excite Lucy. A few days after you guys left, guess who came over the sand dunes? Pell. He's alive. The bomb didn't kill him. Yahoo! Mr. Pell's alive. Mr. Pell's alive," cheered Lucy in a sing-song voice as she spun cartwheels on the deck with sheer joy. Everyone laughed at the captain's childlike behavior before reading on. "I am so happy myself. I was so glad to see him that I am still crying tears of joy. Oh yes, and I must tell you this other piece of news. I haven't introduced you to him yet, but I would like to tell you that I am engaged to my childhood friend, Koza. We will be married in 5 years. Vivi is getting married," everyone, counting out Robin, yelled in surprise. Well, this was new. Everyone had their own forms of shock. Lucy, Chopper, and Usopp were light small firecrackers in the sky, courtesy of the sniper. Sanji was crying tears of joy and sadness. Nami was gaping at the letter while Zoro held a slightly bewildered look. Nami was the first to recover and she read the last of the letter. I'm glad that I had the chance to tell you all these things. I miss you all dearly and I hope that we will all meet again soon. Your friend and crewmate, Princess Nefertari Vivi. Ah, now I miss Vivi even more, whined Lucy, sulking a bit. She then remembered something and she saw that Robin was still on the ship. Oh yeah? Well, is there anything else you need to tell us? Asked the black-haired girl. The ebony-hired woman nodded and her eyes held a playful glint. Yes, I would like to join your crew. Gray eyes averted from left to right, just waiting for the enemy to strike. Sudden bullets rang through the air and the owner of the eyes turned into a mist of smoke, making the bullets fly through the person of smoke. The people who shot the bullets ducked to the ground as the flying death pellets flew over their heads. Slow clapping was heard and the smoke turned back into a person, said person glaring at the clapping person. Good work, Smoker. You dodged those bullets skillfully. Impressed, Hina is impressed, said Hina as she congratulated her old friend. Smoker glared at the pink-haired woman as he cracked his neck and walked over to a table, sitting on the chair that had his jacket. What are you doing here, Hina? And when did you get on my ship? Asked the Logia user as he relit his 2 cigars. Hina sat in the chair across Smoker and she called for 2 cups of coffee. What, can't Hina come and visit? Smoker is a terrible host. Hina is sad, said the woman as she received 2 cups of coffee and handed one to the gray-haired man. Smoker gave an annoyed grunt as he drank up his caffeinated drink. So how is Smoker's wounds? Do they hurt that bad? Asked Hina, noticing the disappearing scars on her friend's abdomen. Smoker placed his cup down and he closed his eyes. They are fine. But they're still healing. Apparently, Crocodile got smart and he assigned assassins into the rebels and royal guards. He also gave them guns that shot sea stone bullets. The sadistic bastard, muttered the Marine. Hina looked to the sky. Sea stone bullets, Hina must keep that in mind. They could be very useful, she said. Smoker opened and rolled his eyes. You really are psychotic, aren't you? He asked. Why yes, Hina is, said the pink kid. Smoker gave a sweat drop and he stood up and held his hands over his head, giving a good long stretched. Woo-hoo, looking good, Smokey. Smoker froze and his eye twitched. He knew that annoyingly teasing voice anywhere. He turned his vision to the pyrokinetic woman that was sitting by the bow of his ship. She had her signature smirk on her face and her long hair flew with the breeze. Smoker took a spilt second to admire those gorgeous, flowing tendrils before he glared sharply at the owner of the hair. Why the hell are you on my ship? He yelled, nearly biting of the ends of his cigars. Anne hopped onto the deck and she reached into her bag, pulling out 2 rolls of parchment. I'm just running some errands, Smokey. I would have made my presences notified sooner but I was just enjoying the view, she said, her eyes brimming with playfulness as she stared at Smoker's bare upper body. She couldn't help but admire his pale and chiseled chest and those incredibly strong biceps. Shivers went down her spine when she wondered how it would feel to have her curvy figure pressed against those well-defined muscles. She nearly laughed when she saw Smoker's face flush red with embarrassment. This was beyond weird. A pirate was complimenting his body. And what was with that look on that woman's face? Even though he felt slightly mortified, he couldn't help but feel a bit of pride when the woman before him had a faint blush on her cheek himself and he reached for his jacket, pulling it on. Alright, Portgas, now that you made your presences, now what the hell do you want? He growled. Sensing the Marine's pissed-off mood, Anne tossed the rolled-up parchments to the man. Just thought you would want to know who's the new member of the bounty list. I just found out this morning, she said when the Marine caught the papers. Smoker unrolled the both of them and he looked at the new poster. Wanted dead or alive Roranoa Zoro $B 60 million. Huh, so the former bounty hunter has a bounty on him. How ironic. Though Smoker as he unrolled the other bounty poster. Wanted dead or alive Monkey D. Lucy $B 100 million. Smoker's eyes widened at the impressive new bounty that Straw Hat had received. Anne was smiling proudly, feeling happy for her little sister. Isn't it great? My sister had 100 million berries on her head. I feel so proud, she said, reaching behind her back and suddenly giving it a rough scratch. She then remembered something. Oh yeah, and congrats, by the way. Apparently the big guys from that ol' HQ of yours found out about Crocodile. You've been promoted to Commodore, she said. Smoker's eyes widened in surprise. They then narrowed. It was your dim-witted sister who beat that oaf, not me. I don't like getting false praise, muttered the promoted captain as he rolled up the 2 bounty posters. Anne took a few steps close to Smoker with her hands behind her head. True. Luce is the one who deserves the praise, but think of it, Smokey. A pirate, beating one of the warlords, who had been deceiving the government for a long time. That would make them look really lame, So what would they do? Give the praise to the nearest, high-ranked Marine around. Which in this case is you, said the Flame girl. Smoker glared at the ground, balling his fist angrily. This was not right, and he knew it. He didn't want this if he didn't deserve it. Even though it was Marine business, it was still wrong. Anne noticed his anger and she walked a bit closer to the man. Look, I know it must feel like a dent in your pride, but look at the bright side, said Anne, taking one more step and leaning to Smoker's ear. Commodore Smoker makes you sound very sexy. She purred in a seductive tone. Smoker's entire body flushed red and he glared at the pirate, who winked and took a jump back. Okay, so I guess that isn't the bright side, I get it. And I guess I should go no, Well, I guess I'll. Anne took a pause before she gave a cough. That light cough turned raspy and it went into a harsh fit. When Anne finally stopped, she was suddenly shivering and sweating. What's wrong with her? Asked Hina, walking over and having a bit of concern on her facial features. Smoker also noticed that Anne didn't look so well and he took a few steps toward the she-pirate. Portgas, are you feeling well? He asked wearily. Anne stood up shakily and she tilted her head to hide her face. I'm fine. Just feeling a bit funny. She rasped as her breathing went shallow and her body began flushing red. Okay. Now Smoker was getting concerned. It was very obvious that Anne was not all right. She looked as sick as a water-deprived dog. Is young lady really fine? Or is she just saying that so that no one will worry? Hina wants to know, said Hina, her voice showing concern as she walked to Anne, placed a hand on the jet black-haired girl's shoulder. Anne pushed Hina's hand off her. I'm fine, really. I just need to moaned Anne as she suddenly collapsed. Portgas, yelled Smoker as he ran forward and caught the fainted girl. He had no idea what made him do that. It was a sudden lurch in his heart that made him feel a strange warmth he had never experienced. He saw Anne's breathing go labored and he saw that her entire body was fire red. No pun intended. Anne's eyes were closed and she was shivering in the Commodore's arms. Smoker clenched his teeth and he turned to Hina. Get the ship's doctor to my room. Also get Toshigi, she could help out, too, he said. Without a moment's hesitation, Hina ran to find the doctor. Smoker picked up Anne bridal style and he speed-walked his way to his room. He felt a nudge at his chest and he looked down to see Anne's eyes halfway opened. Her brown depths were cloudy and confused. Smokey, I feel so cold, but it's hot, too. Chalked the freckled girl as her eyes closed again and her body went limp. Damn it, stay with me, Portgas, don't go to sleep. Snapped Smoker angrily. Panic prickled into his mind and he ran his way straight to his room, kicking the door open and placing the pirate on his bed. The pirate went into fetal position and she curled into a tight ball. Anne's shivering went faster and she's sweating buckets, her cheeks turning more red and moans of pain escaped her sealed lips. She let out a shudder breath that made Smoker work his way faster through his room. He had to keep the girl's fever down or else it would grow worse. He ran into his private bathroom and he damped a towel with cold water. He ran back into the room and he pulled Anne out of her positing, making her lie on her back and placing the towel on her forehead. Anne's eyes came open again and she reached her hands out to Smoker. Warm, I feel so cold, she whispered, he body giving more heavy shivers. Feeling the most tiniest pity he had in his heart, Smoker pulled off his jacket and he placed it on, tucking it around her and keeping her shivering body still. Anne gave another moan and she thrashed her head a bit. Smoker ran his fingers through his hair. Just where the hell was his comrades and doctor? Just then, his prayers were answered and the 3 people came in. All right. Let's see what the damage is, said the doctor as he walked over to Anne. He did a quick checkup on her, checking her heart rate and temperature and taking a small blood test. After a while, the doctor nodded to himself and nodded to himself. Okay, it seems to me that this young lady has coccidioidomycosis, he said. What is that exactly? Asked Toshigi. Coccidioidomycosis is otherwise known as valley fever. It's a fungal infection that occurs when a person breathes in infectious spores. The spores infect the lungs and causes valley fever. Symptoms include cough, high fever, severe sweating, headaches, and many more. This young lady here has all these symptoms. Fortunately, she only has a mild case, said the doctor as he stood up and cleaned his glasses. Smoker felt relief wash through his body. He had no idea why he was glad that the girl was okay, but he decided not think about that for now. How did she get it? Asked Hina. The doctor cleared his throat. Well, since it's obvious that she's been in Alabasta, she might have gotten it when a heavy sandstorm came. She couldn't have known about it since symptoms don't show until after a week or so when the person has been infected. She will get better in a day or so. It's amazing that she will heal so quickly. Must have eaten a devil fruit, the doctor assumed. He walked to the door. The best thing she could do is to drink a lot of fluids and get plenty of rest. The infection will wear off on its own. Good day, said the doctor as he walked out of the room. Well, that is good. Hina is glad that girl will be fine. She is Smoker's lady, after all, said Hina. Smoker glared daggers at his old friend with a blush on his cheeks. She is not my lady, Hina, he yelled, blistered Smoker steaming out of his ears. Shish, I apologize, Commodore Smoker, but Anne needs her rest. We can't just go waking her up, whispered Toshigi. Too late. I'm already up. The three turned to see Anne propped on her elbows, not looking as weak as she did before. Lie down, Portgas. You're still flustered, said Smoker, feeling a bit of protectiveness swell in his heart. Anne shook her head and she pulled Smoker's jacket closer to her body. Chill, Smokey. The doc said I'd be good in a day. Besides, I know that in the next 2 minutes, I'm gonna be bored as eyed girl. Smoker growled in annoyance and was about to call her an annoying brat when Hina cut him off. Hina understands. Would this girl like to hear story from Hina? Asked the female Marine. What kind of story? Asked Anne with an arched brow. Hina's eyes held mysteriousness with playfulness. When Smoker first became a Marine, she said Marine froze and Anne's face split in a grin. Hell yes, she said. Hell no, yelled Smoker, growing angry. One of Hina's arms stretched and chained Smoker's arms to his sides. Did I forget to mention that Hina had eaten the cage fruit? Smoker glared at the woman, who her attention on Anne. As I was saying, this is about Smoker. This is when Hina was just a Marine in training. And, Hina gave a wink. This is when Smoker was a rebel. 18 years ago, Hina would like some water, and make sure it's cold. Raoul raised an eyebrow at the 14-year-old girl who sat on the stool. She had her pink hair tied up in pigtails and she was wearing a white blouse with a blue skirt and a red box on her lap. Okay, sure thing, he said, reaching for the bottle of the shelves of his bar, and he poured the girl some water, making sure it was fresh and icy. He handed the mug to the girl, who gave him some Barris and took a big swing of the drink. Say, shouldn't you be in school? Asked the bartender, cleaning up a glass. Hina placed down the empty mug. No, Hina is a Marine in training. Hina is told to bring this parcel to Marine Admiral in this town by the execution tower. Hina is just taking a break, said the soon-to-be Marine. Just then, the doors to the bar opened and a young man staggered in, taking a seat next to Hina. Just get me the usual, Raoul. It's been a long day, said the young man, giving a small pouch that gave the jingle-jangle of money. Sure thing, champ. Rough day? Asked Raoul, taking the pouch and starting up a mug of sake. Nah, just turned in some idiot bandit. That's half his bounty. And what did I say about calling me champ? Asked the young man, his silver-gray eyes glinting. Hina took a quick look at the young man. He looked about 16 years old with a still-growing slim build. His hair was bristled and silver blonde. His eyes were gray and sharp, as if ready for anyone who tried to attack him. He wore a green jacket with a dark blue t-shirt, dark blue jeans and black heavy boots. Propped in his mouth was a thick cigar. The young man's eyes caught the girl's and he glared. What are you looking at? He growled, trying to scare the girl. Hina gave a frown. This man is rude. Hina stared because Hina wanted to. You should be nice to Hina. She is a Marine in training, she said haughtily, puffing her cheeks angrily and childishly. The young man rolled his eyes and Raoul handed him his drink. Whatever. What do you want me to do? Bow and worship you with 1,000 praises? He asked sarcastically as he took a drink of his mug. Why yes, Hina expects that. The man nearly spat out his drink. He clamped his mouth over his mouth to stop his laughter and he cleared his throat. This girl was way too overconfident. He couldn't believe she was training to be a Marine. Hina glared at the man. She did not like him. They had only said a few short sentences and Hina was already mad at him. She decided to leave. Hina is leaving. Thank you for the water, she said with a bow of her head as she hopped off her stool and left the bar, wanting to get away from the strange man. As she walked, she then noticed that her hands were empty. She had forgotten the parcel. Cursing to herself, she walked all the way back to the bar and saw that Raoul and the young man were still there. Oi, sir. Have you seen the parcel Hina left? I forgot it, she said. Raoul pointed to the young man and Hina's eyes widened. The red box was opened and the young man was holding something in his hand. Said blonde turned and showed that he was eating a bumpy gray fruit with swirls around it. Oh, this was yours? He asked, holding up the last piece of the fruit before plunking it into his mouth. Hina stormed over to him and shook his shoulder like a mad woman. Do you get what you done? Hina had to take that to Marine Admiral. Now Hina will get in trouble. That's it? Hina has you under arrest, yelled the furious pink-haired girl as she grabbed the man by the ear and hauled him out of the bar. Ouch, damn you. Woman, let me go. It was an accident, yelled the gray-eyed man as he tried to get out of the woman's grasp with no avail. Damn, this woman was strong. Hina ignored the man's protest and she dragged him all the way to the docks. A giant ship was waiting there and a man with a Marine Admiral jacket was draped over his shoulders. Hiding his face was the head of a dog. Ah, so you must be Hina. Nice to meet you. Who is your guest? Asked the Marine Admiral, pointing to the dragged young man. Hina lifted the man by his ear with a glare. This idiot ate what was in the parcel, she yelled. The young man grunted and he yanked himself out of the woman's hand, rubbing his ear. Sheesh, I didn't know. It was just lying there and I was hungry, muttered the young man angrily. The Marine looked at the two of them before chuckling. His chuckling turned into laughing and both miners looked at the man in confusion. Just what was so funny? BWA ha 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 ha. You two got spunk. I like that in Marines to be, laughed the older man, wiping tears from his eyes. The young man scowled at the old man. First aimed a Marine to be, old geezer. I was dragged by this mad woman, remember? He snarled, receiving a glare from Hina. The older man laughed again. You might want to think that twice. We always need some devil fruit users on the Marines, chuckled the man. The younger man raised his eyebrow. Devil fruit user? I haven't eaten a devil fruit, he said. But you did. What kind of fruit did you think you ate? That parcel that Hina was delivering was the smoke fruit. It allows the consumer to turn into smoke and the user can use powerful, smoke-based attacks, said the old man. He then squinted at the new devil fruit user. And by the looks of it, your hair is soaking into your new powers as well. The young man cocked his head and he walked to the water, widening his eyes at his now white, gray hair. The hell? What happened to my hair? He yelled. The Marine Admiral laughed. That's your smoke powers for you, kid, he laughed. I bet his moves are weak. Hina thinks young man will not make it as a Marine, she said. Said young man spun around and shot daggers at her. Oh yeah? Well, I bet I can make it as a Marine, old man. Sign me up. Let me join the Marines, he snapped. There was no way he was going to let some woman say what he can and cannot do. His pride was just too hard to swallow. BWA ha ha ha, like I said, you kids got spunk, alright. What's your name, kiddo? Asked the old man. The younger man glared at the ground and clenched his jaw. I have no name. I gave up on my given one a long time ago, he muttered. The Marine Admiral gave a confused frown and he noticed that the young man's hair was now fully gray with a bit of white. He also saw the cigar clenched in the man's teeth. I'll call you Smoker. It suits you, he said. Smoker chewed on that fro a while. Smoker, huh? He suddenly gave a smirk. That didn't sound too bad at all. Present, and Smoker and I have known each other ever since, concluded Hina. She had just released the now pissed-off Marine of her binding arms and the gray-haired man was glowering at her. Fantastic, Hina. Now, let's let Portgas get some rest and we'll walk outside where I'll send you to the godforsaken hell you came from. He snarled angrily. Hina huffed and Anne and Tashigi giggled. The two older women were the first to leave and Smoker turned to Anne. Stay here and rest. When you get well, leave or I'll throw you in my brig. I'm doing this one thing, Portgas. He muttered. Anne nodded and she lied down on the bed, closing her eyes. Smokey? She asked, peeking Fro's jacket. What? Asked the Marine, feeling a migraine coming to his head. Can I have my picture back? You know, the one I forgot? Asked the black-haired girl. Blinking, Smoker walked over to a chest and he dug through the messy papers until he found it. Here, he said, handing back the photo to Anne. The girl gave a tiny smile and she sighed at the picture, holding it to her chest and closing her eyes. After a long silence, Smoker asked a question. Portgas, who's the man in that picture? He asked. Anne kept her eyes closed but a frown came to her lips. It was sad and regretful. Smoker had never seen that type of face on the playful girl's features. His name is Thatch, he's my boyfriend. Smoker felt his heart stop for a few seconds. His insides went hollow and his mind was fuzzy. She had a boyfriend. She was in love. Why did that hurt him? Why was there a pain that stabbed his heart like a blade? What was this strange feeling? He's the 4th Division commander of Whitebeard's crew. He's nice and funny and good-looking. He has a special place in my heart, whispered Anne, her eyes opening, shining with something. They looked like tears. Smoker was confused. It looked like she was going to cry. Well, where is he now? Back on your ship? Asked the smoke man. Anne turned her head to him. His eyes growing more shiny and a watery smile on her face. He's dead, Blackbeard killed him. No sign of hesitation either. He just killed him. And for what? The dark fruit that Thatch had found. He killed for power. He killed the man I loved. That's why I'm after him. He was under my command and I let him slip right through my fingers. Like him make me sick. I'll make sure I'll have the pleasure of beheading that bastard and using his head as a trophy. Wavered Anne, her voice filled with tears and slight vengeance. She then threw her head to her pillow and wept silently. Smoker had no idea what to say. So that was why Anne was after Blackbeard. She wanted to make things right. She wanted to avenge her dead lover. Slowly, he walked over to the woman and he stroked her long locks of black. He saw this as a way of comfort. And Anne took it. For after a minute, her narcolepsy took over and she fell asleep. Watching her sleep for a moment. Sighing, Smoker walked out of his room silently, taking one last look at Anne. I know how you feel, Portgas. I understand you, though the Marine as he closed the door. Two pairs of childish black eyes stared at the still hand coming from the floor, with the flick of a wrist. The hand gave a wiggle and the two owners of the eyes laughed at its little dance. Robin smiled at the two, feeling satisfied that they liked her hand's movement. Chopper yelped at her smile and he hid behind Lucy, in the opposite direction. Hey! Look at a person when they're questioning ya! Snapped Usopp, gaining back the woman's attention. Robin looked back to him and she nodded, placing her hands in her lap and looking professional-like. She was being interrogated, after all. Alright, I want your name, devil fruit name and ability, occupation, and special skill, said the sniper. He then paused and cleared his throat. Oh, my name is Usopp. Hello. He added politely. Robin nodded in acknowledgement. Very well. As I said previously, my name is Nico Robin. When I was 8 years old, I defied the world government and I've been wanted ever since. As a child, I had gained my abilities from the flower fruit, a devil fruit that allows the consumer to grow multiple appendages at will. I study archaeology, which could be very useful to your crew. As for special skill, her eyes narrowed slightly with a soft smile. I kill. Usopp fell back in his chair with crocodile tears. Lucy. We can't let this woman join our crew. She's a killer, yelled the sharpshooter. Lucy was only half listening, since she and Chopper were being mercilessly tickled to death by many of Robin's hands. The sound of a foot meeting would made Robin and Usopp look to the lounge deck, seeing Name with one foot on a table with a scowl on her face. How idiotic. You expect us to allow you to join our crew just right after you were in league with Crocodile. You may have these others fooled, but not me. So hear this, she said as her eyes opened with a menacing glint. Get in the way, and I kick you out? Is that clear? She asked, her voice testing. Robin gave a calm look with the hint of a smile. Crystal. Oh, by the way, I recently remembered that I bought some of Crocodile's jewels with me, she said, pulling out a pouch with a chiming noise. It only took Nami 2 seconds to get down the steps and praise the woman like a queen. Usopp and Zoro were the only two sweat dropping. Man, looks like it's just you and me, Zoro, muttered Usopp. Hey Usopp. The sniper turned and he nearly busted a gut when he saw Lucy with two of Robin's hands curled at her head with a puppy dog look on her face. Chop purr, she cooed. She, Chopper, and Usopp fell to their butts and laughed like mad. Zoro glared at the whole lot of them and he got up, grabbing his swords. Lucy noticed and she got up, grabbing the swordsman's wrist. What's wrong, Zoro? Where are you going? Sanji said that dinner was gonna be ready soon. He said he'll make the best since Robin. I don't care about Robin. Get out of my face, you stupid girl, yelled Zoro, his eyes filled with anger and his breathing heavy as he stormed out of the deck. Everyone watched him leave and they looked at Lucy, waiting for her reaction. The captain had her head down with a sad look on her face. She didn't look happy anymore. Asterisk tick tock tick tock tick tock tick tock tick asterisk Smoker growled in annoyance and he glared at the clock on his wall. He had just finished the paperwork he had to do and now he was completely, utterly bored. He blew out some cigar smoke and he rubbed his temples, closing his eyes. His mind pixelated to Anne's face, her freckled face giving a flirtatious wink. The man opened his eyes again and he looked at the clock. It was close to 9 already and he was beginning to wonder if Anne was any better from her fever. Now that he thought about it, he saw that the pirate was leaving some sort of ache in his heart. The kind that just gave you the urge to take charge and seize it. With a sigh, the Marine got up and he left to his room. He had to go get his jacket after all, since Anne had still kept it. When he made it to his room, he saw that it was slightly ajar and that there was talking coming from it. He walked quietly to the door and he peered through the crack. And then Smoker dumped the Sea King just on the Rear Admiral and Hina had to go save his butt by explaining that Smoker was going to set up stink bombs for passing pirates. The end. Ha ha ha. Smokey sounds a hell a lot cooler back then. Smoker's face flared. Did Hina really have a big enough mouth to go blab about his past? Especially to the woman he was after? He had never felt this embarrassed. To have his past laughed at by a pirate. It felt like a disgrace. Yes, Smoker was cooler back then. But he's still alright now. Roughed around the edges, yes, but he's okay on the inside. I know. Smoker is a good person once you get to know him, and I'm glad I do. That caught Smoker off guard. Did Anne really meant that? Most people feared him when they saw them. But Anne, she was glad that she met him. Indeed. Forgive Hina for asking this but I would like to know. Do you like Smoker, a lot? There was a pause of silence and the sound of shifting. I don't know. I feel as light as air when I'm around him but I still can't get over my other boyfriend. Smoker nearly gasped. Was Anne saying that? She liked him more than just teasing him? Was there something behind all those smug looks and taunts? Oh yes, Anne was talking about that earlier. You obviously miss him, don't you? Her heart cannot just leave him yet? Yeah, I mean, he was the first guy the first ever, really liked. When I saw him dead, Smoker could hear these. I thought that I couldn't let anyone else. But then, I met Smokey and there was another long silence and the sound of Anne shifting again. You know, I sort of knew something like this would happen. Median told me. Median? Like a fortunate teller? Smoker could see and hear Anne cough in awkwardness. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Care to talk about it? Okay, it goes like this. 3 years ago, oi, Captain, why'd we docked here? A 17-year-old ace turned to his crew, his big hat nearly falling off his head as the wind blew in city that they docked. Back then, before ever joining Whitebeard, he was the leader of the Spade Pirates. He was known as the Ace of Spades. Supplies, go find some and we'll meet back here in an hour or so. I'm heading for a walk, called the young man as he and his crew separated. He was only walking for a few seconds when he felt a buzz go through his head. Shit. And I forgot my medicine, too. He cursed to himself. He looked around quickly before running into an alley and letting his body be consumed by flames. Anne appeared out of the fire and she buttoned up the yellow open shirt she had on, fixing her short hair that reached her shoulders and walking out of the alley casually. As she walked, she stared up calmly in the sky with a smile. Today was just perfect. The sun was shining, spring was in the air. Nothing could go wrong. Oh, what a pretty young lady you are. Your appearance tells so much. Anne stopped short and she looked at the old fortune teller that was in the pink tent. Her eyes were owl-like and she wore a lot of gold. Anne looked around, then she pointed to herself. Yes, come here, child. Let me tell you your future, said the older woman. Blinking and shrugging, Anne walked over. The woman softly took Anne's hand and she closed her eyes, tracing the handlines of Anne's palm. Oh yes, I see many things. A childhood filled with mysteries and unexpected turns. A great tragedy made you take a great opportunity and you are now living the life you always wished, correct? Asked the old woman. Anne nodded with slight awe, even though she knew the woman couldn't see her nod. Yes. Quite the good life. A life of freedom, friends, and adventure. But soon, the woman's eyebrows frowned. Another twist of fate will occur and you will discover the joy of companionship, brethren, and first love, said the woman in a trance-like voice. Anne raised an eyebrow. This was news to her. And wait, I see more. Your life will lead you to untold secrets and hidden mysteries. Questions will be answered and your life will change right before you know it. You will find yourself at a difficult choice, risking one life and your own, concluded the woman, opening her eyes. Anne subconsciously rubbed her palm. Wow. I just wanted to become the pirate queen, but if you say my life will be like that. Anne's stomach suddenly gave a growl and she blushed with a toothy grin. The old woman gave a chuckle. I see. Here, have this. The woman reached from the bag she had and she pulled out the strangest fruit. It was spiky looking with the mixtures of yellow, red, and orange, making the fruit look like a tiny flame burning out of the woman's hand. Slowly, Anne took the fruit and she looked at the woman. Trust me. It's very tasty. It will be the best fruit you ever tried, said the woman mysteriously. Anne nodded slowly and she turned to walk off. Oh yes, young lady, one more thing. Anne turned to the woman. What? She asked. Let your hair grow out. That is some womanly advice, said the old woman. Anne's hand went to her short wavy hair and she thought about it for a while, nodding and walking. As she walked she heard her stomach growl and she looked at the fruit in her hand. Raising it to her mouth, she took a big bite. It was spicy, with a sweet taste that made her jaw hurt. Shrugging, Anne continued to eat the rest of the fruit until she had ate it all. She supposed it was all right. Spicy, yes, but not that bad. Anne looked at the sky and she decided to get back to her crew. She had told them about her medicine so she knew they would understand when she came back looking like a girl. As she walked, she felt something grab her behind and she spun around to the lecherous-looking men. With a murderous glare, she raised her fist and charged at the man when she realized that plumes of fire raced out of her fist and shot at the men. They ran away with high-pitched screams. Anne blinked and she looked at her fist, looking at her fired fist. The fruit. She decided. It was the fruit's fault. She looked at her fist again and she suddenly smirked. Things had just started to get interesting. Present. So ya see, I kind of knew that stuff like this would happen. I just didn't knew that second loves were involved, too. Smoker's face had never been so red, so it was that Anne was in love with him. What was he to do now? Barge in there and throw her in the brig? Walk in, take her in his arms, and kiss her for all her worth? He pondered this when Hina spoke. Well, if you want Hina's advice, then I say you should hold on to that love. Then, when you are ready, tell him. There was another shift. Yeah, I think I will. There was another shift and the sound of boots standing on the floor with the cracks of stretching muscles. Well, I feel better now. I don't feel sick anymore. Looks like the doc was right. There were footsteps and the sound of a porthole being opened. Thanks for the talk, Hina. I'll be on my way. And Hina? Yes. Tell Smokey, thank you, for everything. Smoker wanted nothing more than to tell her thank you for entering his life and showing him what she saw. Hina will do that. Hina will tell him. And with the sound of a whoosh, Smoker knew. She was gone. Disappearing like the feeling wind of the sea. Or better yet, the last flicker of a flame. This food looks the best, Sanji, it looks so yummy. Why thank you, Lucy, my heart soars every time you complimented my food. Everyone of the Straw Hat crew surrounded the table of the lounge table that was full of delicious food. Everyone took a seat and Lucy had tipped a toast to Robin, welcoming her to her crew. Everyone agreed and they dug in. As they ate, Lucy noticed that one member of the pirate gang was not there. A man with forest green eyes and the most coolest color of green hair. Hey, where's Zoro? She asked. Everyone stopped from their eating. They were surprised. Lucy wasn't mad that Zoro had snapped at her earlier. Why did she acted as if nothing had happened? I think he's taking watch. He took a few bottles of sake, so I think it'll be a while before he comes down, said Nami. Lucy blinked as she stuffed a piece of bread in her mouth. After she swallowed it, she took Zoro's empty plate and she piled it with white rice and sea king meat. Lucy then stood up and began walking out of the room. I'm gonna take this to Zoro. He must be hungry, said Lucy, leaving her crew confused as she closed the door behind her. The black-haired girl walked over to the mast of the crow's nest and she climbed all the way up to the top. She heard hiccups and she looked over, seeing Zoro with a bottle in his hands and a bit of drool coning out of his lips. His pupils were dilated and his face was flushed red. Lucy noticed the piled bottles of empty sake. Had Zoro drank that much, she wasn't really worried. She knew that Zoro was great at facing alcohol. Hey, Zoro? I brought you some dinner, she said, stepping over and sitting on the opposite side of the samurai, holding out the plate of food. Zoro looked at the food, then at the girl before him. He was drunk, and he knew it. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to come up here with extra strong sake bottles. But he couldn't help it. He was pissed. And alcohol was the only stuff to clam his nerves. Thanks. He hiccuped, taking the plate and eating the food sloppily. Lucy watched in silence and she looked at her feet. Is Zoro still mad at her toes? Zoro stopped eating and he saw a sad look on her face. The same face she had when he snapped at her. With a sigh, he placed down his plate and he grabbed Lucy, pulling her onto his lap. Lucy made a yelp as she was pressed against Zoro's chest in an awkward hug. She blushed and she held her hands to her chest, waiting for her first mate to say something. No, I ain't mad at y'all anymore. I was just pissed. That you just let that woman join us without a hesitation. Slurred the green-haired man, trying to say his words right. Lucy looked up and gave a tiny smile. I'm glad. I like it when Zoro is anything but mad. I like you very much, she said, her eyes sparkling. Zoro looked down at her and he was mesmerized instantly. The full moon gave her eyes and hair and beautiful shine and her lips were so soft when they were curved in her sweet smile. Her warm body pressed against his was just amazing and they were so close. He didn't know if it was his own wool or the sake getting to him but something made him duck his head. Lucy barely managed a squeak as Zoro pressed his lips to hers. They sat there in silence, their lips just resting against the other. Lucy's heart was racing and she was completely frozen. Why was Zoro kissing her? It didn't feel weird but it was a little odd. The weirdness only lasted a bit when she felt Zoro's lips move passionately against hers, coaxing her to kiss him back. With a mule, Lucy closed her eyes and rested her hands on Zoro's shoulders, her lips trying to follow her first mate's lips movement. Zoro nearly growled in pleasure as he felt Lucy's sweet and full lips move her against his. She was so new and shy at this, it was completely adorable. His muscular arms wrapped around her waist and pulled her closer to him. He swiveled his head a bit, making Lucy's hat fall off her head. Lucy hardly noticed and her hands went to the back of the man's neck, her fingers lightly playing with the hairs that resided there. Zoro almost did groan and he suddenly felt a sleeping feeling come to his mind. No, not now. He was experiencing the best moment of his life now. He didn't want a load of booze to knock him out on it. But it was no use. Blackness surrounded his mind and he fell forward, sleeping and snoring on Lucy's lap. Lucy panted and her face flushed with red. She was so happy yet confused. Why had Zoro suddenly done that? She looked at the sake bottles and she sighed, guessing that it was just the alcohol making him do that. His fingers lightly ran through his short hair and she gave a small smile. Even though it was sake that made him kiss her, Lucy really did like that kiss. It was so good, so right. It was perfect. She sighed and she moved Zoro's head from her lap, standing up and swinging her feet over the crow's nest. She looked back and smiled at Zoro one last time before climbing down. He had said that he was not mad at her and he had kissed her. He would most likely not remember it due to a hangover, but with that kiss, Lucy was okay with whatever would happen next.